Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
Hello everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and we are continuing this series, Yeshua Said. And today we're going to be reading Matthew 5:21 to 5:26. And this series, Yeshua Said, is taking out all the words of everyone else in Scripture and taking out all the commentary of those words from Scripture and just focusing on the words of Messiah. When I first got saved, I didn't know anything about the Bible or Scripture or anything else. But all I was led to read the Gospel of John, the red letters. The red letters, what Messiah said. And after reading that, I had to accept Yeshua as Messiah. And then what happened was I started to go to churches, and they started to say, we're going to teach the message of Messiah. And I was like, great, because that's all I knew. But when they started to teach their message of Messiah and what he said, it was different than what I had read in the Scriptures. And then I knew there was a problem. And then I started to realize how Scripture's been changed and people are deceiving other people to think the original covenant was done away with because now we have a new covenant. That's not the case. Yeshua himself pointed people towards the original covenant. If you take the original covenant out of the Scripture and say it's done away with, you've taken a majority of the ministry of Yeshua himself away, because most of the words he said were either quoting or speaking one way or another about the original covenant. Not doing away with it, but renewing it, taking it off stone and putting it on our heart, because it was that important. We need to know it and live it by heart. So we're going to continue with Matthew 5:21 to 5:26. And in this episode, we're going to see Yeshua teaching about anger. Now, this one is a little different than the previous episodes. I'll be honest with you, the previous episodes were pretty easy to understand. But this one, it can be a little confusing to some people for several reasons. One of the main reasons is there's so many different translations of this scripture right here. And because the translations are so radically different, people are getting different ideas about what he truly said or meant in these verses here. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to look at many of the translations and see how they've been twisted and changed, and hopefully discuss why they have, and we can get a clearer understanding of the message of Messiah. And we're going to start off, so we understand the last episode we did, we ended off in Matthew 5:20, where Yeshua was saying, your righteousness must be more of the sages and the Pharisees. The Pharisees had a righteousness that they were following the word, like the Orthodox Jewish community today, are following the word, but it was an obedience thing. I mean, it has to be on our heart, not so much only for, I got to be obedient, I'm going to follow the word, and I'm going to go with the word, and that's it. No, it's also to apply that same discipline towards your neighbor and towards others around you. You need to make sure they're following the word as well, in a kind, peaceful, righteous way. We need to have the same passion, because what happened back then was, if an obedient Jewish person broke the law or the guidelines, when they came to give their sacrifice at the altar, they weren't pleased. They weren't saying, oh, it's all right, I just sinned, now I can go and do this and I'm okay. I mean, they felt bad about it. They felt terrible. Well, we have to feel just as bad when our neighbors break the commandments, or when our neighbor is not living righteously. It's extending that, taking our righteousness beyond what that was of the Pharisees. So that's what we need to do. So we're going to talk about what he said here, and we're going to first read the verse. And I mean, there's many different translations I have here, and I'm going to talk about the other translations. One of the easiest translations I found to understand for this particular verse, now in no means necessary is it a good translation in terms of they've added and taken away things, which we'll see, but all the translations have added and taken away things in this verse, or these verses I'm going to read today. So I had to just pick one to just give us the footprint or the idea of what we're looking at. And I picked the New Living Translation. Now I have much better translations, which I'm going to discuss, but for the sake of reading the simplicity and narrowing it down to today's language and today's times, I think the New Living Translations did a decent job in that area. But still, they've taken too many things out and twist things around, which we're going to talk about. But basically, Matthew 5:21 to 5:26 says, "You have heard that our ancestors were told, 'You must not murder.' If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. But I say to you, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought to the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell. So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar, go and reconcile that to that person, then go and offer your sacrifice to your Creator. When you are on the way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Otherwise, your accuser may hand you over to the judge, who will hand you over to an officer, and you will be thrown into prison. And if that happens, you surely won't be free again until you have paid the last penny. So that's the translation we're going to read today, looking at just the words of Messiah and what Messiah said in this whole verse here, or these whole scriptures here, was strictly what Messiah was telling the people, the Jewish people that were listening to him, his followers. This is what they were telling them. Now, basically, we're going to break this down, but it comes down to, anger is not a great thing, but it can be acceptable. And many people translate this to say, we should never be angry. No, there is something called righteous anger, and Yeshua himself experienced it when he was in the temple overturning the tables. But we'll look at the real meaning of what this actually means here. In 5:21 of Matthew, we'll go verse by verse and break this down. It says, you heard that our ancestors were told, you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. Well, first of all, it says, you heard that our ancestors were told, you must not commit murder. Well, not only were the ancestors told this, in Exodus 20:13, we see that this is one of the commands, and this was given by a wonderful Creator. So it's a Creator passing down this order that nobody should murder. So that right there is a very significant thing. So, and this is Moses translating this word to the people of Israel, that we shall not murder. And Moses at the time, when this was read by Yeshua, was considered the highest prophet there could be of all prophets. I mean, he was considered, his word was it. I mean, his word was everything. So he said, you should not commit murder. So Yeshua was first starting off by reminding the people of what Moses said. So via, as the messenger, via a wonderful Creator, he said, you have heard, you shall not commit murder. Now, most of the people heard that at that time, but they weren't reading the scriptures themselves as much as they were told that by the Pharisees who were translating or reading the scriptures for them. Many of the people in Israel at that time didn't have access to the scriptures, so they would go to the synagogue on the Shabbat, and then they would all read the Torah together, or they would listen to one of the teachers that were reading the Torah. And it says, you have heard that the ancestors were told, you must not commit murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. Well, in 5:22, Yeshua does something that was so shocking, and this really upset the Pharisees at the time. He said, but I say to you, but I say. So that's like saying, how could I translate that in today's time? That's like saying, the president or the government says this, but I say to you, or that's like saying, your favorite, I don't know, anything, person who you consider the highest in your life, they say this, but I say to you. I mean, how about this, reaching it personal? Your mother and father say this, but I say to you. So he's actually not only reinforcing what they said, but taking it to a next level. He was showing his authority, and this is where the Pharisees had an issue with him. He was saying, Moses came and said this, but I'm saying you've taken it the wrong way. This is what he meant by it, and this is what you're supposed to do. And here's the problem with the translation in the New Living Testament and many other translations. It says, but I say to you, if you are even angry with someone, and someone is not a good word. The word really means is, many translations will say your brother. If you are even angry with your brother, and even that is not a good word, because what about our sister? And what about our cousins? And what about our neighbor? Well, the real best translation would be, but I say to you, if you are even angry with a loved one, if you are even angry with someone who's close to you, if you are angry with somebody in your community. So, but I say to you, if you are even angry with someone in your community, and then the scripture reads, or the translation reads, you are subject to judgment, but they're leaving out a very, very important words here that many translations have taken out of the scripture, and that is, if you are angry without cause. Without cause. As I said, there's such a thing as righteous anger. But if you are angry for no reason, you are just not a happy person. You are walking around, you are angry at everything, you have no reason to be angry, and that is an issue, and that is the main issue with this. You could be angry for a reason, and you fix that reason and your anger goes away. But to be angry with no cause and no reason and just walk around and being an angry person. I mean, remember the Smurfs, everybody? Those little blue characters, the cartoons we saw when we were growing up? Well, remember Angry Smurf? He was always angry over everything. If you are an angry person, you cannot show the love that Messiah wanted us to live by. Now, if you have anger and it's righteous, that's another story. And Yeshua himself experienced that, and we experienced that. And, you know, if we can use that righteous anger to motivate us to teach somebody or show somebody the truth and the word of Messiah, great. But if we use that anger, so much so where we seek to kill and destroy a person, that's another story. And so it says, so you have heard that our ancestors were told you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. But I say to you, if you are angry with someone, no. But I say to you, if you are angry with your brother or somebody close to you without a cause, you are subject to judgment. Because if you have a reason to be angry with them, you know, I mean, you're going to be judged still, but, you know, it's okay because you didn't, you know, the judgment is who's going to judge? What are they going to say? You know, you're angry because this person, you're right, I am, and then they're going to agree with you. But if you're angry without a cause, then it's going to create a problem because not only are you going to be judged by it, or you are subject to judgment, to the court, and so on. If you don't have a reason for your anger, you're in trouble because you're going to be found guilty. And if you're going to court over being angry with something you don't have a reason to, and you're found guilty, you're going to be in trouble. So we'll continue in 522. In 522 it says, if you call somebody, and again, it's not somebody or someone, it's if you call somebody close to you, if you call your brother, if you call your sister, if you call your loved ones, if you call your community, if you call them an idiot, you are in danger of being brought to the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell. And here we go with the mistranslation and the misunderstanding of not understanding what Yeshua was talking about at the time. First of all, the salvation issue, if you're angry with somebody, it can lead to murder and it can lead to other issues. But if you've accepted Yeshua as Messiah, you're saved. So when we look at the fires of hell, we have to understand what exactly he's talking about. But the real thing he's talking about here is, you know, again, if you call somebody that you're close with, somebody in your community. Now, this isn't an excuse to go calling people that you don't know idiots and being angry with them. We shouldn't even be really messing with them other than trying to teach them the word and the gospel. We shouldn't be hanging out with them on a regular basis if they're not, you know, one of us, and if they're not saved, and if they're not doing this. Yes, we can spend time with them to try to get them saved. And if you're angry with those people, you're not going to do too much fun trying to get them saved. Those are the people you really got to extend your love to and show them what the gospel is all about. But it goes on to say, you know, we need to avoid the court at every cost. And there's something in the scriptures called Lashon Hara, which is talking of the evil tongue or spreading gossip. And this is a serious thing in the scriptures. It says in Leviticus 25:17, you shall not wrong one another. Leviticus 19:16 says, thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among the people, neither shall thou stand idle by the blood of their neighbor. I am your creator. So you shall not go and talk bad about other people. So if you go talking bad about other people, you know, you are going to be brought before the court, and you have a guilty verdict towards you because you are doing this thing that we're told not to do. Not to curse someone, not to call them an idiot, not to call them empty-headed or anything like this. No. You figure out what the issue is, why you're angry at them. If you have a righteous reason, you take it with them and you discuss it, and you work out your issues. But when it says here, you are in danger of the fires of hell, well, the real scriptures, or many scriptures, and what Yeshua actually said was, you will incur the penalty of burning in the fire of Gehinnom. Now, Gehinnom was a place in Israel. It was like a valley in Israel where all the criminals were sent, and it was like the biggest, worst ghetto you could imagine, and there were fires everywhere trying to kill and destroy things, and the things that weren't destroyed were eaten by worms, and it was just a terrible place that nobody wanted to go to. In fact, Moloch, the pagan god, used to sacrifice children there, which were warned over and over in the scriptures not to do. So it says, if you go around with this unrighteous anger, and you're calling people names, and you're making up lies about people and creating this lashon hara, calling people an idiot, you're destroying the community, and you must be expelled of. Not only will you be expelled, but you will be sent to the worst area out there. I mean, this is an area that nobody wanted to go to or visit ever. So this is what, this is a serious thing, folks. So we look on Matthew 5:23. If you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember, and again it says someone, but no, not just someone, and you remember that your brother or your good friend has something against you, you should feel something on your heart. You should feel, man, I shouldn't be here. I got to go talk to them and straighten this thing out. I mean, if you've ever had an issue with a loved one, and you truly love them, that's how you feel. You don't feel good. You don't feel, I'm going to go make a sacrifice at the altar while there's people out there that you have an issue with that you love. So it says, no, it says in 5:24 of Matthew, you leave that sacrifice there. You leave that gift at the altar, and you go and reconcile with that person. You go and reconcile with that person that's close to you, your brother, and so on. Then you come and make your offer and you sacrifice. I mean, I don't want to say this. I hate to admit it, but I have a great marriage with my wife now. But there were times in the past where we've had issues, and I couldn't stand leaving the house in the morning knowing that we had unresolved issues. And until I went and made peace with them, I didn't feel well. And this is what it's saying here. How dare you go to the house of our wonderful Creator to present a sacrifice while you still have issues with your loved ones? You straighten that out, and then you come in my house and you give me my gift. Well, this is what we have to get, and this is what we have to understand. And this is the message of Messiah. It's not just following the command and that's it, you did it, you're okay. No, it's extending that and caring about others just as much as you care about yourself. Did it not say that in Scripture? It says, love your others as much as you love yourself. And treat them that way. So yes, we can keep the commands, and I'm not going to murder, that's it, I didn't commit murder. But if you're going to have this unrighteous anger towards somebody, so much so where you're walking around there creating bad names for them, calling them an idiot and empty-headed and all, or even worse, if you're an angry person for no reason. I mean, Yeshua is saying, look, we can't have unrighteous anger within our heart. We have to go out there, and we should be a person filled with joy, with no worries or fears. We know Him. And I'll tell you, as a health teacher from sickness and disease, being an angry person on a consistent basis, especially unrighteous anger, is going to lead to sickness and disease. I mean, we all have justifiable reasons for being angry, but Yeshua says take it further. Go over and beyond. Even if you have a justifiable reason to be angry, try not to be angry. Easier said than done, but very possible. Try not to be angry. I laugh at these things. Just this morning, somebody tried to say something, a New Ager tried to say something about me, trying to call me not spiritual, a New Ager. I had two ways to pray. I could have been angry, or I could just laugh and let it go, because I know what I'm doing, and I know what they're doing. And I have such joy in my heart. I don't got to deal with that anger. However, there are some other times somebody might get me angry, and they might be justified, but I'm not going to go around creating gossip about that person and everything else. No. I got more important things to do, and I pray that you do as well. But let's get rid of this anger. That's the message of Messiah. And for those of you that say, we can't keep Torah. Now, Torah is the guidelines and instructions of our Creator, and you might think it's the first 5 books of Scripture only, and maybe technically it might be, But no, the guidelines and instructions of our Creator are all of the scriptures that we need to hear. And that includes the words of Messiah. So that's Torah right here, not to be angry with your neighbor. Now some of you might say, well, if I was angry with my neighbor, then I'm not keeping the commandments. Understand this. It's about not being perfected in Torah. It's about being Torah pursuant. Having the heart of Torah. Having the heart of, okay, even if I mess up, I feel so bad that I messed up that I'm going to do better next time. Not saying, well, I have grace, so I don't have to listen to that. That's a crazy thing people do today. Let's move on to Matthew 5:25. This is words of Messiah, everybody, himself. When you are on the way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Otherwise, your accuser may hand you over to the judge, who will hand you over to an officer, and you will be thrown into prison. Now, this one got me here, and I had to really study this one, because your adversary, I said your adversary. I'll call the enemy my adversary. Satan's the adversary. But that's not what they're talking about here. It is a legal term, adversary. If you go into court against someone else, they automatically become your adversary. So your brother, your friend, anyone you're going to court with is now your adversary. So when you're on your way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Settle the difference quickly. I mean, how are we glorifying our Creator when two brothers of Messiah, or two people that believe in Messiah, are going to go against each other in a court? Here you got people listening to Messiah, all these people are listening to Messiah, and then they're going to go to court against the Pharisees and the court that was established that didn't necessarily believe in the words of Messiah at the time. How is that glorifying our Creator when he says to love each other and treat each other with all kindness? And it even goes so far to say never to bring your brother to court, it says in the scriptures. 1 Corinthians 6:6 says, but instead one brother goes to law against another. This in front of unbelievers. Not to do it. That shouldn't be done. You don't bring your brother to court. You take it to our wonderful Creator. He will settle it. He'll settle it. It comes down to faith. That's what it comes down to. Am I saying we should never go to court and it's never justified? No, that's not what I'm saying, and that's not what the scripture's saying. What I'm saying is we have to try to, do our best to quickly avoid an issue before it explodes so much where it ends up in court. And that's what I believe the message is here. And in 5:26 it says of Matthew, and if that happens, you surely won't be free until you have paid your last penny. And understand in those days when you went, you can go to court, and this is another parable that Yeshua uses. Because understand back then, you can go to court and you can get thrown in jail for having a debt against somebody. And until you've paid that last penny, you won't be set free. There's not just, you're going to court, you're going to jail for a certain amount of time. No. If you owed a certain amount of money and you didn't pay it, you're going to jail until you pay it all back. Well, how can you pay it all back if you're in jail? How are you going to make that money? Don't put yourself in that position. Don't go to court if you can handle it outside of court. Words of Messiah himself. So now we see Messiah. We've seen in the past episodes him talking about and quoting the past. He did that a little in this episode here. But, still, in no way, form, shape did he say, well, the original covenant was wrong and is done away with. In no way did he say, well, now you have to do something completely different. He took it to the next level. He renewed the importance of the Torah found in the scriptures, the first 5 books, and he enhanced those guidelines and instructions. He never did away with it. He made it even more understandable for the people. That's why there were thousands and thousands of people that listened to him when he was preaching and became followers of the way. Do you want to be a follower of the way of Messiah, or do you want to keep following the average so-called believer that is not really following his words, and they're using these loopholes so they can continue living in sin without even knowing it? I pray that you would watch these other episodes. Yeshua Said, the Yeshua Said series. You can go to my website. It is www.healthwatchman.com to see it and check it out. If you have any comments or questions, post them below the video. And until then, everybody, have a great day and shalom, shalom.